Hey there. We are going to start a new read aloud. Dan Gutman has been doing a lot of his fiction books on his Facebook page. So he read 22 books this summer, including his newest book that hasn't even come out yet. So I wanted to do something different and share one of his My Weird School Fast Facts book. And I chose the geography one. I really liked it. So here we go. Let's learn with Andrea and Arlo all about geography. The beginning. My name is Professor AJ, and I know everything there is to know about geography. Geography is cool. Do you know why? Because it's all about exploring volcanoes that shoot red-hot lava in the air, and earthquakes that swallow cars, and tornadoes that pick up cows and fling them across the highway, and hurricanes that rip trees out of the ground, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. Now, just wait a minute there, Arlo. Oh no, it's Andrea Young, this annoying girl in my class with curly brown hair. She calls me by my real name because she knows I don't like it. Don't bother reading Andrea's parts in this book. That's just the boring stuff. Yes, my name is Andrea, and I know a lot about geography. And I know geography too, because I'm in the Gifted and Talented program at school. But geography isn't just about natural disasters. Geographers explore and describe the earth and the people in it. They try to explain where things are, why they're there, and how they change over time, and what they all have to do with humans who live there. Geography is about our planet, the continents, the lakes, the rivers. Oh, I'm sorry, I dozed off there for a minute. I couldn't help it. Andrea is so boring. But geography isn't boring. Did you know that more than 2/3 of the Earth's surface is made up of Jell-O? Did you know that when you reach the very top of Mount Everest, there's a McDonald's? Did you know that in Antarctica, all the toilet bowls are upside down? Arlo, you made that all up, and everybody knows it. Well, yeah, but I do know a lot of true stuff about geography, too. Weird true stuff. Do you want to know what it is? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. There's just one thing you have to do. Turn the page. Go ahead, turn it. No, it's not like I'm going to turn it for you. I'm inside the book. Yours truly, Professor AJ, the Professor of Awesomeness. Andrea Young, I'm going to Harvard someday. Don't read the AJ parts in the book. It's just the boring stuff. Chapter 1. What is geography, and who cares anyway? I can handle the second part of the question. The answer is nobody. That's who cares about geography. Okay, we can move on to the cool stuff now, like exploding volcanoes and tornadoes that pick up cows and fling them across the highway. That's what I want to read about. No, Arlo, geography is really important. Why don't you go sit down over there and play with your little video game while I explain geography to the people? Sure, I love playing video games. Don't tell Andrea. But if it's okay with you, I'll skip this part of the book and go straight to the chapters about exploding volcanoes and flying cows. Just ignore him. It's an attention-getting device. It was the ancient Greeks who came up with the word geography. It means to write or describe the earth. They were the first geographers. For thousands of years, people didn't think much about geography. They had other things to worry about. Do you know what they worried about? They worried about whether or not they would have something to eat that day. I can understand that. If I was living in a cave somewhere and a woolly mammoth was chasing me, I wouldn't at all be worried about describing the earth. Can I interrupt for a minute here? Though, were woolly mammoths actually made out of wool? I don't think so. Because wool comes from sheep, and I don't think that sheep would willingly give up their wool just to keep some mammoths warm. I bet if there were woolly mammoths today, they would be made out of cotton or some synthetic fabric. Just ignore Arlo. Anyway, geographers really didn't take off until the Chinese started to use the compass as a navigational tool around the year AD 1000. The compass was a tool that helps you to know which direction you're facing. Suddenly, brave sailors were able to travel beyond their small area to see the world. In the early 1400s, the Chinese explorer named Chen Ho set sail on 7 voyages to the lands around China Sea and the Indian Ocean. Arlo, did you ever hear of Marco Polo? Sure, everybody knows that Marco Polo. That's the game you play in the pool during the summer. I'm awesome at Marco Polo. No, dumbhead. Marco Polo was an Italian merchant who traveled to Asia and came home to tell everyone about the mysteries of the Far East. Oh, yeah? I knew that. I was just yanking your chain. I knew all about Marco Polo. He was the guy that went all the way to China and brought pasta and ice cream back to Europe. That guy was cool. Hey, how did Marco Polo keep the ice cream that cold? Didn't it melt on the way home from China? Actually, most historians say there's no evidence of that. But even if Marco Polo didn't bring back pasta and ice cream, his travels started the age of exploration. Brave explorers set off all over the world looking for gold and new lands to conquer and for spices. They traveled the world looking for spices. Why didn't they just go to the supermarket? That's what my mom does when she needs spices. They didn't have supermarkets back then, but from the 15th century to the 17th century, European explorers sailed all over the world. And after the printing press was invented in 1400s, word got out that the world was an amazing place. Countries like the Netherlands and Spain and Great Britain began setting up colonies all over, including North America, and that would eventually become the United States. Knowing about geography helps people spread themselves all over the world. It also helps people to understand their place in the world and who else lived in that world. That's what geography is all about. Andrea thinks she's so smart because she knows a lot of stuff about geography. Why can't a truck full of geography books fall in her head? Chapter 2, Planet Earth. In case you're a total dumbhead, let me just start by telling you that the Earth is the same name of the planet that we live on. Duh. And everybody knows that. And if you don't know that, close your book right now, go to Walmart. They're having a sale on brains. I'm sure everyone knows that planet we live on is called Earth. But do you know that the Earth is sort of like a giant rock that flies through space at 67,000 miles per hour? Whoa! You better hold on tight so you don't fall off. 67,000 miles per hour is way faster than your dad drives, even when he's going over the speed limit. Like all the other planets in our solar system, Earth is constantly circling around the sun. Do you know how long it takes for the Earth to go around the sun? Just one time? 365 days. That's exactly one full year. What an amazing coincidence. While Earth is considered moving around the sun, it's also spinning around like a top. And if you've ever tried to rub your tummy and pat yourself on the head at the same time, you know how hard that can be. But Earth is very good at multitasking. How fast is the Earth spinning? About 1,000 miles an hour. Wow! No wonder stuff keeps sliding off my desk all the time. Actually, it doesn't feel like the Earth is moving at all. It's sort of like when you're in a car driving down the highway at a constant speed. You close your eyes and you feel like you're standing in one place. Speaking of cars, do you know how a car's wheels turn around the axle? Well, the Earth is actually turning around its axis. An axis is not a real thing. It's an imaginary line that goes through the North and South Pole. And by the way, the North Pole and the South Pole are imaginary things too. It's not like you go to the end of the Earth and there's some big pole sticking up out of the ground. That would be weird. The North Pole and the South Pole are just like points on the top and the bottom of the Earth. Geography sure has a lot of imaginary stuff. I used to have an imaginary friend, but we got into arguments one time, and we haven't spoken to each other ever since. Do you know how long it takes the Earth to spin around on its axis just once? 24 hours, or exactly one day. That's why we have day and night, by the way. When your part of the Earth is facing the sun, it's daytime. When it turns around and not facing the sun, you have nighttime. For the people on the opposite side of the Earth from you, your night is their day, and your day is their night. Confused yet? Me too. But don't worry about it. Earth is going to keep on moving around the sun and spinning around the axis whether you know about it or not. And that it's not like you're going to get tested on this stuff. At least not today. Speaking of imaginary lines, the equator is another one. It's right in the middle of the planet. Think of the equator as a belt that holds the Earth's pants up. So North America would be the shirt, and South America would be the pants, and everything above the equator is in the northern hemisphere, and everything south of the equator is the Earth's southern hemisphere. A hemisphere is half of a sphere. Hemi means half, so sphere means a round object. So it is the perfect name. If you were to drive a car all the way around the equator, you would be driving 24,901 miles. You would also end up in exactly where you started. So what would be the point of doing that? You might as well stay in one place. And if you drove the car all the way around the equator, you would probably drown because most of the area around the equator is water, and you can't drive through water. Hey, do you know what the Earth is made of? It's made of earth, of course, duh. What a trick question. Well, it's not quite as simple as that, Arlo. Earth is made mostly of rock, and there are three main layers. There's the crust, thick center, and the core. The crust is where we live. The Earth's crust is between 5 and 25 miles thick. It's sort of like a pie crust, but you wouldn't want to eat the crust of the Earth because it would taste bad, and you would probably throw up, and nobody wants to eat Earth. Underneath the crust is the mantle. It doesn't have anything to do with baseball player, Mickey Mantle, even though it has the same name. But he was a great player, and he could bat left-handed and right-handed, but not at the same time. That would be weird. The mantle is about 1,800 miles thick. It's made up of hot, gooey, partly melted rock called magma. Can you imagine how hot it must be if rocks are melting? Well, you don't have to. The depths of the lower mantle are about 33,600 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you think that's hot, then underneath the mantle is the Earth's core. The inner core of the Earth reaches temperatures of 12,600 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so hot that when birds pick up worms, they have to use pot holders. Okay, that's a joke. How old is the Earth? Nobody knows that for sure. Well, it's not like the Earth gets birthday presents every year. That would be a fire hazard anyway, because the Earth is really old. Scientists think the planet's about 4.6 billion years old. Yes, I said billions. That's older than my grandmother, and she's pretty old. By the way, the moon is younger than the Earth. Rocks were brought back from the moon by the astronauts in the 1970s, found it to be 4 billion years old, and new research shows that the oldest rocks from the moon are 4.4 billion. How do scientists know how old the Earth and the moon are? Because they're really smart. Scientists use this thing called carbon dating to measure the ages of the rocks. Carbon dating is where two pieces of carbon go on a date with each other. That would be weird. It's where you determine how old something is by measuring how much carbon is left in it. I know, it sounds complicated. That's because it is. And if you want to find out how it works, grow up and become a scientist. In the song Imagine, John Lennon wrote, "Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do." He was right. The lines between the countries you see on maps are more of those imaginary lines that geographers use. I love so much. When you travel from one country to another, there isn't a big black line on the ground separating the two countries. If you go into outer space and look down on the Earth, you don't see countries. They all blend together. It's too bad. People from different countries can't get along and blend in with each other like the countries on the map. The last imaginary line is the International Date Line. This is the coolest of all the imaginary lines because it separates one day from the next. The International Date Line is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, extending to the North Pole and the South Pole. So if you're on a boat that crosses that line headed east, you have to go back a day on the calendar, and if you live yesterday, one more time. And if you're on a boat that crosses the line headed west, you have to go forward a day on the calendar, and you miss a day of your life. That's weird. And if you happen to find yourself standing right on the International Date Line with one foot on either side of it, there's no telling what day you're in. But we should really get back to it in the boat because you're going to drown. And that's all you need to know about the Earth.